The trade lanes near the Red Abyss were always dangerous, but tonight they were worse than usual. The smuggler ship Dancer's Edge drifted in the cold dark, its engines crippled and hull scarred from a recent fight with pirates, the crew thought. The worst was over until their sensors picked up something following them. No drive signature, no lights. Just a shadow moving through the void, matching their every turn. Captain Rowe, a scar-faced Galarian with nerves like stone, had seen many strange things in his life, but this was different. The shadow was too steady, too precise. Then it happened. A single beam of white light, brighter than a sun, cut through space and grazed the freighter's wing. The metal glowed, then vaporized without an explosion. There was no sound, only the silent horror of watching part of the ship vanish into nothing. Rowe's voice cracked for the first time in years as he screamed for the crew to send a distress call. His words went out across the stars, shaking with fear. "It's the Black Lance. We're dead." Far away, in the shining city spire of Raven Prime, the Galactic Council was in the middle of a heated session. Alien ambassadors shouted over each other, their voices blending into an angry storm. The holoscreens behind them replayed the same. Grainy image, a long black warship with sharp edges and a predator's shape, sliding out of the shadows like it was made of the void itself. This was no ordinary ship, every being in the chamber knew it. The Black Lance had been banned by every alien treaty in existence. Council claimed it had been destroyed 30 years ago in a secret battle. But the smuggler's distress call had changed everything. Now the galaxy wanted answers, and they wanted them from one place. Earth, the human ambassador, Elias Merrick, stood calm under the barrage of accusations. His silver hair and sharp eyes gave him the look of a man who had survived too many political wars. "The United Terran government confirms," he said, voice steady, "that the vessel known as Black Lance was dismantled decades ago. What you see is likely a fabrication, or a pirate vessel designed to intimidate." His words were met with laughter from some, fury from others. One towering reptilian senator slammed his claws on the table. "Fabrication, the ship carries? The mark of erasure. One beam and an entire moon could be gone? You humans promised it was destroyed?" Marek's jaw tightened. He said nothing more, only turned his gaze to the windows overlooking the city. Outside, Raven Prime's twin suns painted the towers in gold. But his mind was far away in the dark corners of space where human ships still sailed. In a remote mining station orbiting the gas giant Varric 9, a grizzled old pilot named Soren. Kale was fixing the hull of his shuttle when the emergency bulletin lit up the comms. He froze at the image on the screen. Even through the static, the shape was unmistakable, sleek, black, deadly. The Black Lance. He had seen it once before, back when he was young and reckless. During a classified operation in the Rim Wars, the ship was faster than anything else in known space, and its weapon. I had watched it carve a canyon into a planet like it was slicing through paper. He thought it had been lost forever. If it was back, that meant trouble, galactic trouble. And Soren knew the Council wouldn't tell the truth. Across the smuggler channels, panic spread like wildfire. Some claimed the Black Lance was hunting ships that carried alien tech. Others said it was seeking something: coordinates, relics, even a living being. Few whispered a darker theory. The ship wasn't serving Earth anymore. That maybe, after decades in the shadows, it had chosen its own purpose. The Council tried to suppress the rumors, but every day new sightings came. Always the same: no approach on scanners, no warning, just a flicker in the void, and then destruction. Back on the Dancer's Edge, Captain Rowe's crew had gone silent after sending their distress call. Their signal was picked up by a relay buoy, but no rescue came. Days later, a salvage team found the ship adrift, its crew gone, its systems fried. There were no bodies, no damage except for one perfect circular hole cut clean through the cargo bay. The salvage chief, a gruff insectoid named Vess, swore she heard something while walking the empty halls. A low hum, like the distant echo of a heart still beating. She left the wreck without looking back. In the council chambers, pressure was building. Warships were being moved into border sectors. Trade routes were shutting down. Insurance rates for space travel were spiking so high that civilian flights were being canceled entirely. And through it all, the Black Lance stayed unseen, except to those it wanted to be seen by. When Ambassador Marek returned to his quarters, he found a small black data cube sitting on his desk. There was no record of how it got there. No guards. Saw anyone enter? He activated it cautiously. A single message appeared, in clear Terran standard. They are coming. The treaties will not save you. Evie Marek's pulse quickened. He knew only one person with those initials, Alara Voss. Former captain of the Black Lance, officially dead for 30 years. His hands tightened around the cube. Voss was alive, and if she had the Black Lance, then the galaxy wasn't facing a ghost ship. It was facing a war it wasn't ready for. Ew. He stared out at the night sky beyond the spire's glass walls. Somewhere out there, the shadow ship was moving again, watching, waiting, choosing its next target, and Marek knew one thing for certain: the Council would try to hunt it. But if the stories were true, they would be the ones hunted instead. The official search for the Black Lance began 3 days after the first confirmed sighting. The Galactic Council tried to make it look like a calm, controlled operation, warships deployed. Patrol routes tightened, border scans doubled, but beneath the polished speeches and hollow reassurances, fear was spreading like radiation. Every captain who had ever flown near the Outer Rim suddenly found excuses to delay their voyages. Merchant fleets rerouted at enormous costs. Even pirate lords vanished into hiding. Deep in the classified archives of Earth's military command, encrypted orders were being prepared. The United Terran government denied the existence of the Black Lance in public. But behind closed doors, their top brass spoke of it as if it were a living predator. In a secure conference room on Luna Station, 4 admirals and 2 intelligence chiefs stared at a rotating 3D image of the ship. The hull was sleek, black as the space around it, marked with faint etchings of old Terran war crests. One admiral finally spoke, her voice low and sharp. If this image is accurate, then it isn't just operational, it's been upgraded. That means someone's been maintaining it for 30 years. Nobody said the name, but everyone was thinking. Alara Voss, the last confirmed captain of the Black Lance. A woman who had fought in battles, so classified that even her service records were sealed to the highest security clearance. She was a ghost in every sense, officially declared dead in the Battle of Vanarift, her remains lost to space. But old veterans knew better. If she was still alive, she was more dangerous than the ship itself. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of the Red Abyss sector, a small scavenger crew aboard the Sable Runner picked up a distress beacon. The signal was faint, old human military frequency. Against the advice of his crew, Captain Drevin followed it. What they found was impossible. A warship, larger than any they'd seen, floating quietly near the shattered remains of a moon. Its hull was so black it seemed to drink the starlight. No lights, no movement, no visible crew. But their sensors showed something terrifying: the ship's reactor was running at full capacity. Drevin tried to hail it. No response. Then, without warning, the Sable Runner's systems went dead. Lights, engines, weapons all offline. Panic erupted on the bridge. The only thing still working was the main view screen, and on it, words began to appear in clean Terran standard. Leave now. Drevin didn't need to be told twice. They managed to reboot just enough power to pull away, and as soon as they were clear, the Black Lance vanished into the shadows. One moment it was there, the next gone. Back in Council space, the alien factions were growing restless. Some argued the Black Lance was a human weapon meant to intimidate the galaxy into submission. Others claimed it had gone rogue and needed to be destroyed before it decided to strike a populated world. A few, more cunning, saw an opportunity. They wanted to find it first, not to destroy it, but to capture it. Ambassador Elias Marek was summoned to another emergency meeting. This time the questions were sharper. "Where is your ship, Marek?" snarled Senator Varak of the Traxial Dominion. "You claim it's a myth, yet your people are the only ones who could build such a thing." Marek kept his face unreadable. "You give my people too much credit, or perhaps too much fear." After the meeting, Merrick walked alone through the polished corridors of the spire. He knew the truth he had known since the moment he saw the data cube. Alara Voss wasn't the kind of person who surfaced without a reason. If she was making herself known, it was because she wanted someone to notice. The question was who? In a darkened chamber on the mining world of Raylos 3, far from the eyes of the Council, a secret transmission was being sent. The figure on the screen was a woman with streaks of silver in her black hair, her face shadowed, but her eyes bright and cold. "Phase 1 is complete," she said. "They know we're here. Now, we wait for them to come to us." The image cut out, leaving only the silent hum of the transmitter. The Black Lance was no longer hiding. It was hunting. And the galaxy hadn't even realized it had already chosen its prey. It was a quiet stretch of space near the Zaith Corridor, a trade route patrolled by the Galactic Council's elite fleet. 12 warships moved in perfect formation, guarding a convoy of merchant freighters. Their job was routine scan for pirates, keep the traders safe, and report any suspicious signals. For years, nothing more dangerous than an asteroid drift had crossed their path. That night, their luck ended. At first, it was just a shadow on the long-range sensors, too small to be a planet, too large to be a fighter. The fleet's commander ordered a scan. The moment their systems tried to lock on, the shadow vanished. Every ship in the fleet adjusted formation, weapons ready. Then, out of the darkness, a single pulse of light faint quick blinked across the void. A coded signal, ancient, in Terran military format, before the fleet could even decode it. The first explosion ripped through the lead destroyer. No energy beam, no missile trail, just a blinding flash as the ship's core tore itself apart from within. Seconds later, 2 more warships suffered the same fate. The surviving captains shouted orders over comms, desperate to locate the attacker. That was when it appeared sliding out of the blackness. Like a predator from deep water, the Black Lance, its hull caught only the faintest glint from the distant star. But its silhouette was unmistakable, long needle-shaped, bristling with weapon mounts no Council vessel had ever seen. The Council fleet opened fire, unleashing a storm of plasma and railgun rounds. The Black Lance didn't dodge, didn't even raise shields at least, not in a way the Council sensors could detect. The projectiles simply vanished before they touched the hull, swallowed by some unseen barrier. Then the warship fired back. It was not a beam, not a missile. It was something far worse, a single ripple in space itself, a distortion wave that passed silently through. The battlefield, every ship it touched, went dead instantly. Engines failed. Lights died. Weapons fell silent. The ships just drifted, powerless, as if some cosmic hand had plucked the life from them. Only one vessel survived with power intact, the Galant Spear. It's a flagship of Admiral Soren Kale. The Black Lance hailed them directly. The voice that came over the channel was calm, deliberate, and human. "Admiral Kale, you have 30 seconds to decide whether you are friend or target." Kale stood frozen. The voice was unmistakable, Captain Alara Voss, missing in action for over 3 decades. His bridge crew stared at him, waiting for orders. But before he could speak, she continued, "There is a threat coming for all of us. The Council won't tell you because they think they can bargain with it. They can't. I have the only weapon that can stop it, and they will try to destroy me for it. If you stand in my way, you will join them in the dark." The transmission cut, and the Black Lance disappeared again, folding into a sliver of light before vanishing entirely. Kale's crew began shouting, "Reports, 3 Council destroyers gone. 5 disabled, hundreds of lives lost, and no sign of the attacker." Back on Council worlds, the incident was reported as an unprovoked assault by a rogue human warship. Elara's warning was erased from the official record. But in the privacy of his quarters, Kale replayed her voice again and again. She didn't sound like a traitor. She sounded like someone on the edge of desperation, somewhere deep in Council. Space Alara watched the reports as well. Every fleet they sent after her would fail, and she knew it. She needed them angry, afraid, chasing her into the places she wanted them to go. Because the null tide was already moving, and time was running out. And if the galaxy refused to believe her, she would force them to. A remote mining colony in the Drethus Fringe went silent. No distress call, no warning. One day, the colony's coms were alive with the chatter of traders and workers. The next, nothing but static. The council dispatched a recon team. There. Final transmission was a single phrase, whispered through a crackling channel. It's inside the dark. Then dash silence. 2 days later, entire sensor arrays on nearby stations began failing. Not destroyed, just empty. No readings. No light. No energy signatures. It was as if the stars themselves had been erased from that sector of space. The council called it a localized blackout anomaly. Ilara Voss called it by its real name, the Approach. In the shadowed command deck of the Black Lance, Ilara stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Entire sectors blinked red, indicating lost contact. Her crew, a hand-picked mix of ex-soldiers, scientists, and outlaws, watched the spread in grim silence. "They still think it's a storm," muttered her weapons chief, a scarred veteran named Rin. "By the time they see what it is, they'll be gone." Ilara's jaw tightened. "We're not here to save the council. We're here to save the worlds. They'll sacrifice first. And for that, we need the null tide to follow us." Far from her position, Admiral Kale sat in a council war room surrounded by alien dignitaries. The Traxal Dominion demanded a preemptive strike against the Black Lance. The Orthus Coalition argued for a joint capture mission. Only Kale remained silent, his mind replaying Ilara's voice. If what she said was true, this wasn't a rogue warship, it was a last defense. But convincing the council of that would be impossible. They wanted her destroyed, not understood. Meanwhile, the null tide made its first real move. A Traxal defense fleet, 50 ships strong, vanished in under an hour. Survivors from a lone escape pod were picked up days later, their minds shattered, unable to speak. Medical scans revealed no wounds, no toxins, just absence. Neural pathways looked as if they'd been erased. One medic described it in a single line, like the memories were never there to begin with. The galaxy had faced weapons of mass destruction before, but this was different. This wasn't killing, it was undoing. Ships, worlds, people gone, not because they were destroyed, but because they had been unwritten. Ilara knew why. The null tide didn't feed on matter. It fed on the patterns of life itself, the electrical signatures in minds, the quantum imprints in matter. When it swept over something, it wasn't erased in a fiery explosion, it simply ceased to have ever existed. That was why the council couldn't detect it in time. You couldn't fight what you couldn't remember existed on the Black Lance. Ilara issued her next order, transmit to Kale. Encrypted deep burst. He needs to see it for himself. The com officer hesitated. "If he's under surveillance, he is," Ilara said. "But I trust him to make the right mistake." Across the galaxy, Kale was reviewing routine fleet reports when a strange packet of data flashed into his secure terminal. The files contained sensor logs, star charts, and one short message: "You've seen the ripples. You know they're wrong. Follow them." Kale stared at the map. It showed a clear path, one the null tide had already taken. If the pattern held, its next target would be the inhabited moon of Syraxis Prime. Population 1.2 billion. The council hadn't issued an evacuation order. Kale realized with cold clarity they didn't believe in the danger. Or worse, they planned to use Syraxis as bait. Somewhere deep in the dark, the null tide continued to drift forward. Not fast, not loud, just inevitable. And in its wake, the galaxy grew smaller, as if space itself was folding in on nothing. Ilara was right about one thing. His time was running out. Syraxis Prime was beautiful blue oceans, white cloud belts, sprawling continents rich with forests and cities. From orbit, it looked like a paradise. To the Galactic Council, it was something else entirely. A lure. Officially, Syraxis had been declared strategically vital and placed under heavy defense. Hundreds of Council warships ringed the moon in a glittering shield wall. Kale. It looked like a fortress built, not to keep something out, but to keep the people in. In the Council's private war room, the plan was laid bare. If the nulltide approached Syraxis, the fleet would hold position, keeping every sensor fixed on the phenomenon. Billions of lives would be the cost of gathering complete tactical data on the enemy. Cale's jaw tightened as he listened. To the cold logic, he wanted to study it like a lab experiment, and they'd chosen a living world as their petri dish, far away. On the Black Lance, Alara Voss already knew. Her spies within the Council had sent her fragments of the plan. Stood at the main viewport, watching the blue shimmer of Syraxis on her nav display. They think they're in control, she murmured to Rin, her weapons chief. They have no idea what's coming. The nulltide did not announce itself. It never did. One moment, deep space was empty. The next, a distortion appeared, like a smudge on the fabric of reality. No light, no energy, just an area where the stars behind it seemed wrong, as though their positions had shifted by fractions of a degree. Council ships scrambled, moving to intercept. Weapons lit the void. With streaks of plasma, torpedoes, and railgun bursts, every shot vanished into the distortion as if the space itself swallowed them whole. Cale stood on the bridge of his flagship, the gallant spear, gripping the railing so hard his knuckles whitened. He could feel the seconds slipping away. Evacuation order he'd begged for never came. Civilians were still on the surface, children playing in streets. Workers in factories, families sitting down to evening meals, completely unaware of the doom sliding toward them. Then without warning, the Black Lance dropped out of stealth between the nulltide and Syraxis Prime. Gasps erupted across both fleets. To the Council, she was a rogue threat. To Cale, she was the only one moving to shield the moon. Open a channel to Cale, Ilara ordered. The connection hissed, then locked. Urgent. Admiral, I'm not here to fight you. I'm not here to fight your lines and get those people out. But if you don't turn your ships now, your precious Council will watch 1 billion lives vanish for nothing. Cale hesitated only a moment before snapping orders to his crew. Redirect fire. Target the anomalies leading edge, follow her. Trajectory. His second-in-command gaped. Sir, that's treason. Then consider me a traitor, Cale said. The Black Lance surged forward, releasing bursts of strange, shimmering energy. They weren't weapons, not in the traditional sense. The ripples struck the nulltide, not damaging it, but slowing its advance. Cale's ships moved into formation behind her, forming a funnel-shaped path leading away from Syraxis. But the nulltide didn't retreat. Adapted? Tendrils of distortion split off, reaching toward the moon from multiple directions. Each one that touched the surface would erase everything in its path. Rin, Ilara barked. Full spectrum burn. Now, the Black Lance erupted in a blinding cascade of energy, its hull glowing white-hot as systems overloaded. The wave pushed the tendrils back, buying precious minutes. Cale seized the opening, ordering transports to launch from the moon's surface. 15 agonizing minutes. The combined fleets fought not to destroy the nulltide, but to buy time. Then, just as the last transport cleared orbit, the distortion surged, swallowing the defense line. Ships winked out one by one, gone as if they'd never been built. The Black Lance barely escaped, its engines screaming. Cale's flagship followed. Close behind, both ships battered and burning. Syraxis was Ganit's oceans, its cities, its people vanished into nothing. Only those few transports remained, carrying the survivors into the uncertain dark. In the silence that followed, Ilara's. The voice came over a private channel. This is what happens when you wait for permission to act, Cale. Next time, we move first. Cale didn't answer. He couldn't. He was too busy staring at the empty space where an entire world had been. Feeling the weight of the billions who weren't saved. The survivors from Syraxis Prime drifted in silence, packed into overcrowded transports that smelled of fear and loss. Outside their viewport, the Black Lance and the gallant spear floated like wounded predator, scarred, scorched, but still. Alive, neither Ilara, Voss, nor Admiral Cale spoke of the billions gone. There was no time for grief. The nulltide was still moving, And it had learned from their last encounter. In the dim war room of the gallant spear, Kale studied the latest sensor projections. The distortion was growing faster now, feeding on the energy it consumed its Syraxis. If left unchecked, it would sweep through 3 more systems in the next cycle. The council was in chaos, blaming Kale and Alara for provoking the anomaly. They demanded their surrender. Neither responded. On the black lance, Rin placed a glowing shard of alien crystal on the table. "This is it," he said, his voice rough. "The only thing that can kill the null tide. Took it from the archives of a dead world the council pretends never existed. But using it will burn out your ship's core." Alara didn't hesitate. "Then we'll burn it. The galaxy can build another ship. It can't rebuild time." She opened a secure channel to Kale. "Admiral, I've got one shot, but I need you to drive it into position." Kale's brow furrowed. "You're asking me to play decoy for a weapon you haven't tested?" "I'm asking you to trust me," she said. One last time. The plan was insane. The gallant spear would bait the null tide, drawing it toward a narrow corridor between 2 black holes. The gravitational forces there would slow its movement just enough for the black lance to slip inside its event boundary and plant the crystal. The chase began at once. The gallant spear dove through asteroid fields, weaving between plasma storms. The null tide in slow but relentless pursuit. Every so often, its tendrils would lash out, erasing entire chunks of rock from existence, leaving empty holes in space. Kale's crew fought to keep their nerve, knowing that one mistake would mean not just death but erasure. Finally, the trap point came into view. Twin black holes swirled like monstrous eyes, their pull bending the light of distant stars. Pushed his engines to the limit, pulling the null tide into the corridor. Its advance slowed just as Alara predicted. The black lance dropped from stealth, engines roaring, its hull glowing with the heat of overdrive. Alara's voice rang over. "The comes. This is it." Ship dove straight into the distortion, vanishing from Kale's sensors. Inside, Alara felt reality warp. Colors bled into one another. Sounds stretched and twisted. Her crew gritted their teeth as they pushed toward the center, where the fabric of space seemed to ripple like water. She slammed the crystal into the ship's core, converting it into a pulse of impossible energy. Outside, Kale saw it a flash brighter than a supernova. A burst that rippled through the void. The null tide shuddered, its tendrils collapsing inward. Its distortion folding into a single point before winking out entirely. Silence fell. The anomaly was gone. But so was the black lance. Kale scanned every inch of space, but there was nothing, not wreckage, not debris. Just empty stars. He knew what that meant. She hadn't been destroyed. She had been removed. Weeks later, in the quiet of deep space, Kale stood alone on his bridge. A faint transmission crackled over an encrypted channel. It was a voice Alaris. "Voice Admiral. If you can hear this, I'm still here. Somewhere. Tell them not to fear the dark. Sometimes that's where we do our best work." Then the signal faded, leaving Kale staring into the endless black, wondering if the galaxy's most dangerous warship had just become its unseen guardian. And somewhere, in a place beyond memory, the black lance moved through the shadows, watching.